Goat climbs mountain. South Bay Goat Company faces closure. Transgender goats. Massive fish die off in heat wave. Salmon fishing is back on. Is Lindsey Graham a goat or a fish? We examination this as we look into the record of the now deceased South Carolina senator. Young girl chained to fence. Will the White House build permanent fencing? Horrific electric fence pickleball accident. Fence creature attacks park goers in Yellowstone. Intrepid musical goat summits Mount Fuji in Japan. All of this and less on this edition of Goat vs. Fish News. It's Newsday Tuesday with Goat vs. Fish. It's Newsday Tuesday with Goat vs. Fish. Celebration, 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 celebration. It is Newsday Tuesday with Goat vs. Fish, and we are here. Goat vs. Fish is here to bring the verses to you, is here to bring the verses to you. Celebration, celebration, celebration. For information. For your information, you are watching Goat vs. Fish. You are watching Goat vs. Fish. And what a mighty verses, and what a mighty verses it is. Let's check in with the congregation for this first mini morning motivation. Welcome, congregation. Welcome to Goat vs. Fish. Appreciation lysergic freak fish with 10 bits to Goat vs. Fish, with 10 bits to Goat vs. Fish as we start this new verses. We are back in the screen green room of Goat vs. Fish on this morning motivation, and we are here to count the goat and fish. Yes, we will be doing about 30 minutes of Goat vs. Fish morning motivation, of Goat vs. Fish morning motivation, a mini motivation, the verses you have come to expectation in your morning routine. So let's start with our declarations. Yes, Goat vs. Fish. The news we are most concerned with every morning is whether or not you have chosen goat or whether or not you have chosen fish. So are you goat or are you fish? TML is fish, has declared fish, because fish is in the name, and as we know, that counts for 2 fish. If you have fish in your name, that counts for 2 fish. Breaking verses. If you have fish or goat in your username, it will count for more than 1 goat or fish in the verses of Goat vs. Fish. Lucid Nap declares goat. Celebration for goat. There's 1 goat and 2 fish. Yes, celebration. The news and politics and social demographics of Goat vs. Fish are always changing. Maybe the news will be that ICFAH will have chosen goat or fish. What is the ICFAH? Tell Goat vs. Fish. Tell Goat vs. Fish. And we have lysergic freak fish with the fish and celebration for fish and celebration for fish. J-Stick says Tuesday, Newsday, let's go. Who's excited for a Newsday? Who's excited for a Newsday? Are you so excited for news? Remember, lots of news of Goat vs. Fish can actually be very depressing. Oh no. Horrible things are happening around the universe, and Goat vs. Fish is going to report on them. Oh, my verses. Oh, my verses. Oh, goat versus fish is a fun versus. Oh, look at the cute goat. Look at the cute goat. Oh, look at the fish. Look at the fish. Well, goat versus fish news is not for kids, okay? Goat versus fish news ain't for kids. Goat versus fish is not for kids and guppies. Goat versus fish is for big, mature, intelligent goat and fish who are looking to have partisan dishes served up to them hot and cold. Goat and fish, we're going to be covering all kinds of verses. Actually, there was one versus that was too extreme for goat versus fish news. It was definitely goat news. Goat versus fish looked for goat and fish and fence news. That all happened here within this last week of the mighty verses. And we saw some goat news. Oh, it was goat news. Oh, it was goat news. Oh, it was goat news. But goat versus fish. There's some news that goat versus fish. Some news is just too heinous, even for goat versus fish, to bring you on goat versus fish news. We know. Goat versus fish. We're not here to cover up the verses. We're not here to cover up the verses. But goat versus fish is telling you that there was some goat news that happened within this last week. Let us just say that non-consensual activities, a mass gang of individuals, be they goat or fish, performed non-consensual activities upon a goat, which afterwards died. Aww. It was a very sad versus and a very graphic versus in Goat versus Fish. We're not going to be covering that on Goat versus Fish news. However, we will be covering a massive fish die-off, so okay, we suppose that we will be covering massive death and violence on Goat versus Fish news. It happens out there in the universe. It does happen out there in the universe. It does happen out there. We do not deny it. But it's just, some of it's just too hot for televerses. But here we are on Goat versus Fish. Are you goat or are you fish? TML has been watching for 125 consecutive streams. Appreciation. Goat versus Fish, just doing some slight modification to the sound alerts here on Goat versus Fish. That's a reasonable versus. Lord Saturn goat, Psychic Buckeye goat. That's another goat for Goat versus Fish. That's 2 goat and 3 fish. That's 2 goat and 3 fish. Wow Mama's in the verses for goat. But just look at these headlines. Lindsey Graham is fish. We're not bearing the lead on that versus. Of course, the title is Lindsey Graham is fish. But is Lindsey Graham fish? Was Lindsey Graham fish? The South Carolina senator now deceased at 71 due to some sort of heart aortal rupture or other sort of verses like that. Very sudden verses. Oh, wait, that wasn't the verses. Oh, wait, was that what? Oh, wait, no, go down fish. No, we were saying that Lindsey Graham is dead. Cue the proper, Goat versus Fish. No, wait, that's not the verses. Goat versus Fish. Wait. We think we have the sound alert somewhere. Lindsey Graham is dead. Yeah! Oh, wait, Goat versus Fish. No, that wasn't the verses. Lindsey Graham is dead. There's the verses. Forgive Goat versus Fish. We were just said Lindsey Graham is dead, and then suddenly all these sound alerts started showing up on Goat versus Fish, and of course, Goat versus Fish. We meant no offense. Of course, when we said that Lindsey Graham was dead. It was just that there was so many buttons here in the studio of Goat versus Fish, and most of us may be feeling about that versus whatsoever, but of course on Goat versus Fish, once we heard the news, we just had to report it because it's Goat versus Fish news. Green Tea 3699 says goat celebration for goat. That's another goat in the verses. Of Goat versus Fish and appreciation. Are you having your morning tea, Goat versus Fish? Goat versus Fish, it started to get hot in the verses. It started to become a hot verses, so we are just enjoying hydration. A classic hydration with Goat versus Fish. We said a classic hydration with Goat versus Fish. Fresh mountain runoff. Fresh mountain runoff. Yes. Are you goat or are you fish? Goat versus fish. And 10 bits, 10 bits. The minimum verses. Celebration for the minimum verses. That's 10 for the fish. That's 10 for the fish appreciation. And all of these verses will be added to the 5-Hour Friday Fund. Celebration, 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 celebration. Brittany Fishy with the fish. Celebration for fish. That's 4 fish. The fish are kind of flatter than the goat. 4 fish for goat celebration. Green tea is having Earl Green tea today for goat. Green tea, we would suspect such a verses. We would suspect such a verses. Oh, that's a previous verses. Brittany Fishy maybe have been from the previous verses. Brittany Fishy was from the previous verses. Central Sloth, are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat or are you fish? New Vegas, are you goat or are you fish? Lockheed Martin weeps for LINSEY. Perhaps that's true. We weren't able to get in communication. We sent several verses to Lockheed Martin to see if they were goat or fish, and they did not get back to goat versus fish. They did not get back to goat versus fish. Motivation, goat and fish. Yes, we are getting into 15 more minutes before we start covering the news properly, goat and fish, but you deserve versus a little morning motivation, don't you? And this verses, we're going to be talking about information. On this morning motivation, we're going to be talking about information. Sometimes, goat and fish, we can feel powerless out there in the universe. The goat are versing, the fish are versing, and you feel as if you are being surrounded by a muddy avalanche of combined land and sea filled with broken bits of barbed wire and wooden post fence, and you are just caught up in the deluge. And as you are trying to versus, you can feel weak, you can feel insecure, you can feel as if it's all a blur, and you can feel as if whichever way you move, whether you move to the goat side, whether you move to the fish, whether you try to climb even high up on the fence, there can seem to be no escape, and no way to navigation, the mighty verses of goat versus fish. If you are a goat, you feel at the mercy of fish, and the fish feels at the mercy of goat. Well, goat versus fish is here to tell you this. No one knows what's going on. Here on the Goat vs. Fish Morning Motivational Newsday Tuesday, we are here to tell you that no one knows what's going on. Everyone out there is just grasping at straws, and then just as soon as you've grasped the straw, along comes a goat to eat the straw. You thought you had the straw, you thought you had the last straw, but no, the goat came to eat it anyway. Yes, goat and fish. No one really knows what's going on, and yet we report it with confidence anyway. Goat versus fish, here on the Morning Motivational Goat versus Fish Newsday Tuesday. We are here to report with confidence that no one knows what's going on, and Goat versus Fish is going to tell you all about it. Goat versus Fish is going to tell you all about it. Yes, just because you don't know what's going on does not mean that you can't. Just because you don't know what's going on does not mean that you can't. Projection, a sense of confidence that you do know what's going on. You can speak with confidence. You can look them in the eye and you can say, I know what's going on. You can trust me. I have the information. And Goat versus Fish is going to give you that information. So you have the information you need to get out there and versus your best. But goat and fish, yes, it's true. Many goat and fish are confused. Many goat and fish are confused out there in the verses, and you may be one of them. You may be two of them. You may be 17 goat and fish locked in a mighty verses, confused about what's going on. And yes, it's true. There are many false sources of information out there. Who do you trust? Who do you trust for your information? Well, you can trust Goat versus Fish. You can trust Goat versus Fish. Goat and fish, get out there and seek information. Information can be a wily little fence creature. The information can zig this way and that. The information can look goat one versus and then fish the next. But the true information is goat versus fish. The true information is goat versus fish. The pursuit of the information. The pursuit of the information is half the verses, Yes, you pursue the information, but you also learn what kind of information is fence and what kind of information is goat and what kind of information is fish. Get comfortable with the verses that you'll never know it all. You'll never know it all, but that is no excuse. That is no excuse not to know anything at all, Goat and Fish. That is no excuse not to know anything at all. And remember, yes, in this mighty verses of living streaming and YouTubes and all of these verses, you can still go down to your local library while they still exist, and you can read something. Oh, my verses, reading things. You can read verses brought to you by experts, and there will be some who say, oh, don't believe the experts, don't believe the experts. But Goat vs. Fish heard that they were an expert in not believing an expert, so we don't believe the experts who tell you not to believe the experts. And Goat vs. Fish chooses to believe the experts in defiance. Goat vs. Fish will believe the experts in defiance of those who tell Goat vs. Fish not to believe the experts, because those who tell you not to believe the experts is just another conspiracy. It's a conspiracy promoted by Big Fence to get you not to trust Goat and Fish. They say the expertise is a conspiracy. Well, Goat vs. Fish says it's a double conspiracy. So it's a double conspiracy. Yes, they believe too much in their non-belief. They believe so much in their non-belief that their non-belief has become a belief, and Goat vs. Fish does not believe in their non-belief. Goat vs. Fish believes in Goat vs. Fish. Goat vs. Fish believes in Goat vs. Fish. Goat vs. Fish believes in Goat vs. Fish, and Goat vs. Fish believes in each and every one of you. Goat vs. Fish believes in each and every one of you. Goat vs. Fish believes in Lysergic Freak Fish. Goat vs. Fish believes in Green Tea 3699. Goat vs. Fish believes in Sensual Sloth and New Vegas 10,000. Goat vs. Fish believes in Wow Mom. Goat vs. Fish believes in the congregation of the Verse Church of Goat vs. Fish. Goat vs. Fish believes in Lucid Nap. The information can make you powerful. The information can make you powerful indeed. Goat and Fish can make you powerful indeed, and sometimes before you make that decision. Before you make that decision of goat or fish, many do seek information. They say, I need to know more information before I choose goat or I choose fish. And by all verses, seek out information about goat and fish. Do your research on Goat and Fish. Look up Goat vs. Fish on the interwebiverse and find out what you can. None of your questions will be answered, but by all verses, find out what you can about Goat vs. Fish. Find out what you can about these fine goat and fish and how they verses before you make your decision. Your decision can be powerful. With information, you can make a more informed choice, and your decision can be powerful. What do you want to do with your life? Well, maybe do a little bit of research first. Not just outward goat and fish, not just outward research, but search within yourself. What do you want out of life? Much of the information you seek lies within. Sometimes there's a harsh truth you do not wish to accept. You look out there for any information you can to dissuade you from accepting the information that you know deep in your heart to be true. Well, get off that fence. If you know it to be true deep within you, if you know you're a goat or you know you are a fish, it is best to accept this. But by all verses, learn more information about the universe around you. Learn more information. But when it comes to making a decision between goat or fish, sometimes you can have analysis paralysis. If you think you want to have all of the information before you make your decision, well, Goat and Fish, we are telling you this is a dream of a fence creature. The dream of the fence. You will never have all the information, and even if you had all the information right here, right now, on Goat vs. Fish, you had all of the information all at your disposal right now, well, guess what? In the next moment, it's a new verses. Everything in the universe has changed. The motivations have changed. The news have changed. The lands and the seas have shifted. And now there's new information. And now there's new information about the old information. The information is always changing. So it is an illusion to think that you can know all of the information before you choose goat or fish, and it is best to get comfortable with this, Goat and Fish. It is best to get comfortable because you will never know all the information, and if you insist on knowing it all, Goat and Fish, then you're going to miss the big brawl. The Goat and Fish are going to be enjoying their mighty verses, and you're going to be missing it. You're going to be missing it all. Celebration Moby was taken with 60 months of Goat vs. Fish appreciation. Moby was taken, so I chose fish. Moby was taken, so I chose this. Are you fish or are you goat, Moby? Of course, we have heard that you are fish, but here on the Goat vs. Fish Morning Motivational Newsday Tuesday, we are going to ask you, are you goat or fish? And we're going to record your subscription here on Goat vs. Fish. And it was written, and it was written, and it was written. Sensual Sloth believes that Goat vs. Fish believes in you, and it's true, and it's true, and it's true. We do. New Vegas 10,000 with the goat. New Vegas 10,000 with the goat. 5 years of Goat vs. Fish. 60 months. 60 months. That is 5 years of Goat vs. Fish. An extra special celebration for Moby was taken, so I chose this for 5 years of Goat vs. Fish. Yes. The loyalties you have for Goat vs. Fish, the loyalty you have for Goat vs. Fish is matched by few goat and fish, by few goat and fish. A glorious versus for Moby was taken, so I chose this with 5 glorious years of Goat vs. Fish, 5 years of Goat vs. Fish, 5 revolutions of Goat vs. Fish. And Moby was taken is always fish, is always fish. Celebration for fish, celebration for fish, celebration for fish. And for your 5-year dedication to Goat vs. Fish, we shall award a verses for fish. We're going to award a verses for fish. A verses for fish for your 5 years of Goat vs. Fish. Yes. Deal with it, Goat. On this 5-year anniversary, you get a verses. You get a verses. You get a verses for the fish. You get a verses for the fish. Moby was taken, so I chose this. You get a verses, and we get a subscription as well, Earned verses will have a little verses around them, and subscriptions will look more like this. Wow, Goat and Fish. Wow, this board is way smaller than the one that's in the Temple of Goat vs. Fish. Appreciation for your dedication to Goat vs. Fish. Let's do our morning motivations. And then let's get into the news, Goat and Fish, and then let's get into the news. Let's get into the news after some brief morning motivations, because you got to get limber, Goat and Fish. If you're not healthful, then how are you going to get all the information? How are you going to get the information? How are you going to accept the information? If you're not feeling healthful, Goat and Fish, we've got to feel healthful, Goat and Fish. We've got to have a healthy verses. So let's put on some thunder tracks and let's do some celebration. Let's put on this one called Debunk, because we're going to debunk the fenciness right here on the news of Goat vs. Fish. Oh, yes. Making modifications here on Goat vs. Fish. Let's do this. Let's do our morning celebrations. Mike Zilla, welcome to Goat vs. Fish. It's time for morning celebrations. As we listen to the thunder tracks. It's morning celebration time. Let's get ready, goat and fish. Let's get ready, goat and fish. Hooves shoulder width apart. Hooves and fins shoulder width apart. As we practice getting off the fence. As we practice getting off the fence. As we practice getting off the fence. Let's roll our heads around. Get our brains moving. And now shoulders, and now shoulders. Roll the shoulders, goat and fish. Roll the shoulders, goat and fish. Shoulders and neck, shoulders and neck. Shoulders and neck. Volume balance. The volume balance is being a bit strange to goat versus fish. Arm circles. Arm circles. Forward and back. Forward and back. It's like fish swimming. That's how we do it now. Fish swimming. Fish swimming. Fish swimming. And backstroke. Ooh, we felt that one. And hip circles. Hip circles going the goat way. And hip circles going the fish way. High stepping, climbing goat. High steps, climbing goat. Like we're marching towards the temple of goat versus fish. Ankle circles, ankle circles. Move those footsies around. Move those footsies around. And reverse. Rotation, heavy rotation. And reverse, and reverse. And now it's time for our proper morning celebrations, For our proper morning celebrations. And down we go, Let's get off that fence. Celebration, that's one. And down we go. Celebration, that's two. Celebration two. Celebration three, that's three. Celebration four. Celebration five. If you can't make it through all 10, that's okay. Tomorrow we'll do it again. Let's go down for 6. Celebration 6. We've never felt more powerful than this. Celebration 7. Down for 8. Celebration 8. Feeling great. Goat versus Fish actually got some decent sleep last verses. We did the Ding Dong show at the Comedy Store Los Angeles, and we said our verses is to get back to our place of rest, to not consume anything along the way, to not do any doom scrolling, to brush our chompers, enjoy some hydration, and go directly to sleep. And that's precisely what Goat vs. Fish did. So we got a bonus hour. And that restful nature of Goat vs. Fish we now bring to you. We bring to you 9. Celebration more 9. Celebration more 9. Celebration more 9. Celebration 9. And Goat and Fish and Goat and Fish. Down we go for 10 for the final verses. Celebration 10. Celebration 10. We've done it again. We've done it again. We've done it again. We've done our morning celebrations again. And now some hydration, and now some hydration. Goat vs. Fish looks here. Goat vs. Fish looks here. Goat vs. Fish looks here, and we see. We still have it. We still have one more secret verses from perhaps 3 or 4 years ago. The last secret verses that Goat vs. Fish uncovered was the everything's just fine hot dog, the everything's just fine on fire dog creature. But we have one more. We have one more secret unopened box. We don't know what is within. If we reach 50, that's 50 versus American dollars on this stream. Currently, we have 3 versus American dollars and 10 cents. If we reach 50 versus American dollars on stream, we will open this and we will find out what is within here on Goat vs. Fish News Research. We have been listening to Thunder Tracks. What mountain is this? That's a great question. Appreciation Thunder Tracks. Appreciation Thunder Tracks. A shout out for Thunder Tracks. Shout out for Thunder Tracks. Hydration indeed. Fish lack feet. Some fish have feet. Some fish have feet. ATD. ATD. Oh, ATD. Oh, ATD. Oh, we understand. So nice to have your attention, however, momentarily. ATD, are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat? Kerm Arts, are you goat or are you fish? Thank you, Mike Zilla. Are you goat or are you fish? We ask every verses. We ask every single verses. And yes, it's time to get into the news. It's goat versus fish. We're feeling the anticipation. We're feeling the news anticipation. We see that some of you want to bloop. Some of you want to bloop. Kerm Arts goes fish. But we're not blooping this versus. We could set up a bloop this versus. One's in chat if you want a secret bloop during the news of Goat versus Fish. We'll set it up if there's enough demand. Appreciation, Kerm Arts Fish. If you want a secret bloop during news of Goat versus Fish, we'll make one. Oh, they want it. They want the secret bloop. Okay. We'll make it. We'll make a secret versus. We'll make a secret verse. We'll make a secret verse. Goat versus Fish, starting the secret verses. Goat versus Fish, starting the secret verse. Launching the secret verses. Installation. Running install script. Installations happening on Goat versus Fish. Installations apparently happening on Goat versus Fish. Or are we caught now in an infinite installation launching loop? This has been known to happen some verses. This has been known to happen some verses. We have to let it run its installation. Running install script. It's been known to happen on Goat versus Fish. We have not been in the Screen Green studio for several weeks now. It's nice to return. It's nice to return. It's a different sort of feeling. Goat versus Fish, we wanted the return. We wanted the return. Goat versus Fish is scripted. Goat versus Fish is scripted. We planned it. We planned it just like this. We planned it just like this. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that versus. Get started. No. Okay. Oh, Goat versus Fish is in the Marble affiliate program. So if you want to buy any new marble skins, use code GoatVsFish and we get 5% of the contribution. Something like this. Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. Bloop. Bloop for Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish is a completely scripted versus. Everything you hear was planned 27 million years in advance. Play cost 0. Starting plays 1 0. Plays for all threshold. Goat versus Fish. When max score is hit, all players with a Goat versus Fish. What do we just want 0 on all these verses? Don't we just want 0 on all these verses? Goat versus Fish. Start the verses. Score minimum 1. Score max 500. Why don't we just make the score max 1,000? Just so it's even more fun on Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish refunds. This mode will refund the next play cost back to the user after scoring. Sure, great versus. Penalty. This will penalize a player for joining while they already have... No offense that. Start the verses. Goat and Fish. The bloop has been started. You can type exclamation bloop into the verses. Goat and Fish. This verses will not be on screen all verses. We suppose we could put it on screen all verses. But what we have now is a new news scene. We have a new news scene. We have a new news scene. What the Goat versus Fish? Goat versus Fish. Back in the verses. Back in the verses. You tried to set up news on Goat versus Fish. You really tried to set up news on Goat versus Fish. Derelictica celebration. Derelictica celebration for a subscription to Goat versus Fish. Derelictica celebration for a subscription to Goat versus Fish. Appreciation for a subscription to Goat versus Fish. Appreciation. What do we have in this versus? We have Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. This is the versus we want. Goat versus Fish. That's the versus we want. Why did it redirect away from that versus? These news web zones are all like, oh, you can't have an ad blocker. You can't do that. Why the fence not? Why the fence not? Why do we have to watch your fancy fence advertisements? Goat versus Fish doesn't want to watch your fancy fence advertisements. Derelictica is for unification, but are you Goat or Fish? Derelictica. Usually you are Goat. Appreciation for your subscription to Goat versus Fish. Are you Goat or are you Fish? We go now to the new scene of Goat versus Fish, to the new scene of Goat versus Fish, and it looks something like this. Behold the new news scene of Goat versus Fish, and it looks a little versus like this. And celebration for Goat. Derelictica has gone Goat. Derelictica has gone Goat, and that's a subscription for Goat, and that's a subscription for Goat. Appreciation. Your versus has been recorded in Goat versus Fish. Your versus is recorded even now. What chicken does to dogs? What? As soon as you open the news, you get chicken versus dogs. You put on the fence advertisements. They say you can't watch our verses without fence advertisements on Fox Business. Foxes, chickens, dogs, and now the ad is removed. Give us details. We don't need any details about that. We're just glad that the ad has been removed. Celebration, the ad has been removed. Goat and Fish, it's information for profit. It's information for profit on Goat versus Fish. Yes, it's information for profit. Yes, it's monetization. Lindsey Graham is dead. Lindsey Graham is dead. Oh, hold on, wait. Wait, versus. We know. It's big news. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is dead at 71. A sudden deceasement. A sudden deceasement, which is shocking the nation of Goat versus Fish. But there have been many eulogies, many opinings for this warmongering senator indeed. Yes, whatever you may think about Senator Graham, there are those out there who have much to say, in the way of eulogizing and praising this deceased friend and colleague who has ruined the lives of so many goat and fish throughout the universe. Very powerful one indeed. Sucking up to the fence, always sucking up to big fence. Lindsey Graham was always sucking up to big fence. And though it was clear to see that Lindsey Graham was sucking up to the big fence sitter in the White House, now that Graham is deceased, everyone seems to have a different verses, seems to be singing a different song. And what we did, we found this here. Let's go to around 310. We have this information here. Lindsey Graham never straddled the fence, says Senator Tommy Tuberville, who sounds like some sort of potato. Senator Lindsey Graham's sudden passing is remembered by Fox Business host Elizabeth MacDonald and political figures including Ronald Trump, Chuck Grassley, Tim Scott, and Tommy Tuberville. The discussion highlights Graham's policy legacy, work in foreign relations, foreign destructions, Goat versus Fish, and their impact in Washington. Never straddled the fence. Lindsey Graham was never on the fence. After all, we've got to hear this. We did our research and we found it somewhere around 310. Let's see what it sounds like. Let's hear what it looks like.
And passion of Senator Graham. We should point out the FBI supplemented background report on Justice Kavanaugh didn't find corroborations for Ford's claims of sexual assault. What are your thoughts on what you just heard about Senator Graham's passion for his job?
Well, we just look at this random verses, and the first verses we hear is about sexual assault. Welcome to News with Goat versus Fish. Welcome. What are your expectation? We told you this verses isn't for kids. This is serious verses.
For his job, passion for his country and his state of South Carolina. You know, Lindsey Graham, the one thing about he never straddled the fence.
Celebration. Oh, my verses. These we make it. It's so why the fence are Goat versus Fish. Okay, so we have to increase the verses here. Why can't all volumes be adequate for Goat versus Fish? Why can't all volumes just be super normal and useful to Goat versus Fish?
Graham's passion for his job.
Oh, passion for his job, passion for his country and his state of South Carolina. You know, Lindsey Graham, the one thing about he never straddled the fence. You knew where he stood. I didn't agree with everything that he believed in. We all have our disagreements.
Well, did Lindsey Graham believe in goat or did Lindsey Graham believe in fish? It's all well and verses to say that Lindsey Graham never straddled the fence, but did Lindsey Graham believe in goat or fish? This is very much like a politician to say, I'm not on the fence. No, I have very strong beliefs. Yes, I have very strong convictions. I have strong beliefs and I have strong convictions, and we're going to fight for those convictions. Oh, appreciation. What are those convictions you were fighting for? What was that about? What sort of policies are you promotion? They won't tell you. They'll tell you how committed they are. They will tell you that they're not on the fence, but then they won't tell you if they're goat or fish. They won't tell you if they are goat or if they are fish, and half the verses when they tell you if they are goat or fish, really they're just versing for big fence.
But if he believed in something, for instance, Ukraine. I went to Ukraine with him 3 months.
The false verses. Ukraine versus Russia is a false verses. Ukraine versus Russia is a false verses. And many verses ago, we heard that Russia was trading North Korea some milking goats for soldiers to fight on the front. So don't think that just because Russia versus Ukraine is a false verses doesn't mean that there are not goats involved. It's true. Russia traded breedable milking goats to North Korea in exchange for soldiers to fight on the Ukraine front.
Months before the war started, about 5 years ago. He was very.
Was it really 5 verses ago? Was the false verses of Ukraine versus Russia really 5 years ago, Goat and Fish? It's as if these wars just drag on forever. It's as if these wars are just dragging on forever. When are they going to let Goat and Fish have the verses? You've had your Russia versus Ukraine. You've had your United States and Israel versus Iran. You've had your United States versus Iraq. You've had your United States versus Venezuela. You've had your United States versus all of the universe. You've had your World Fence 1. You've had your World Fence 2. When are you going to let it be Goat versus Fish? Can't we have a Goat versus Fish World War Goat versus Fish? We think that would actually solve something, but no, the fence industrial complex is too entrenched to allow there to be World War Goat versus Fish.
Very passionate with Zelensky. We sat there and talked to him about an hour with the generals before Russia was attacking a couple months later. He was with them then, and he's with them today.
With them today? With them today, what, did they all die too? They must have all died. Aww. Everyone must have died, Goat and Fish. Well, you've heard it. Lindsey Graham was never on the fence. Lindsey Graham was never on the fence. Or was Lindsey Graham never on the fence? GOP strategist pens scathing tribute to parasitic sucker fish, Lindsey Graham. Celebration for fish! Celebration for fish! Maybe Lindsey Graham was fish after all. We've got some opinions here. A tribute. A parasitic suckerfish, Lindsey Graham. I won't mourn Lindsey Graham's death, but rather the country he helped break. Oh, isn't that sad? Oh, isn't that sad? Political strategist and longtime Donald Trump critic Steve Schmidt publishes a blistering assessment Sunday of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, calling him a parasitic suckerfish and the hollowest of hollow men. So a hollow suckerfish with nothing within it? We've got to feed some goat to that fish. We've got to feed some goat to that fish. Nothing within, truly nothing inside the fish. Nothing in the fish. There wasn't anything within Lindsey Graham. If Lindsey Graham was just a common fencer, but listen, any fish, if Lindsey Graham was a true suckerfish, then deep within, Lindsey Graham would be a longing to versus goat. So we will not abide by this slander of saying that there's an empty fish when we know that all fish contain the verses. All fish contain the verses of goat versus fish. Every last fish contains the very verses of goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Yes, here's the verses. Writing in his newsletter, The Warning, you have something to warn Goat versus Fish about? Schmidt attacked Graham, who died at 71, over the verses, unprincipled man who betrayed his country for power and his decency for attention. Well, Goat versus Fish is never going to betray you, but this is just a classic verses. The fence sitter says, I'm going to help you, Goat versus Fish. I'm going to build you up, Goat versus Fish. We're going to build a big, beautiful fence, and it's going to make Goat versus Fish beautiful again. And yet, those fence sitters, for all their promises, they lack principle, and they betray Goat versus Fish. They inevitably betray Goat versus Fish. It is pitiable that even a parasitic suckerfish like Lindsey Graham, goat and fish, even in the halls of power, absolute fence corrupts fence-salutely. You may go in as a goat, you may go in as a fish, and before you know it, you are hollowed out by a fence post that has bored its way into your posterior and turned you into an empty shell. Goat versus Fish. Schmidt described Lindsey Graham as a pathetic man and a true cynic and a faithless servant of the Constitution who lacked a moral core. A faithless servant. What the fence is a faithless servant? That doesn't sound like a servant to Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish does not need any faithless servants of Goat versus Fish. If you have no faith in Goat versus Fish, well, Goat versus Fish still has faith in you. And if Goat vs. Fish has faith in you, then why not have faith in Goat vs. Fish? Why not have faith in Goat vs. Fish? Schmidt concluded, I won't mourn Lindsey Graham's death, but rather the country he helped break. Yes, yes, yes. So there we have the evidence. There we have some evidence that Lindsey Graham was actually a sucker fish. Now let's go back and look at the legacy of Graham. The legacy of Graham. The legacy of Graham. Let's go back to Lindsey Graham's greatest hits. Lindsey Graham's greatest hits. More fence news. Lindsey Graham reduces Trump's border wall to just a metaphor.
The electric fence.
Oh, my verses. Oh, my verses. Just a metaphor? Just a metaphor? We thought the fence was supposed to be big and beautiful and true. No fence indeed, Rent Stallion. We thought it was supposed to be a big, beautiful, and true fence, and now you're telling Goat vs. Fish that the fence was just a metaphor all along. We never would have guessed. That's sarcasm from Goat vs. Fish. We never would have guessed that the fence was just a metaphor. Get off the fence. The fence that Goat vs. Fish wants you to get off of is no metaphor. It's your living existence in which you are paralyzed from choosing goat or fish and can't get on with your life. You've got to get on with the verses. You've got to choose goat or fish. You think that the fence is just a metaphor on Goat vs. Fish? You think that Goat vs. Fish is a metaphor? You think that the fence is just you think the goat and it's just a metaphorical verses? No, Goat vs. Fish is a true verses. Goat vs. Fish is a true verses, and you thought the Mexicans were going to pay for it? You thought it was going to be cabra contra pez? A metaphorical paying. A metaphorical paying. Goat and Fish, please metaphorically pay Goat vs. Fish for this service of providing you the news. We will accept your metaphorical payments now. But we warned you always that the fence, it's not a real verses. There's only Goat and Fish. So the fence, if it's anything at all, it must be a metaphor. It must be a metaphor that is hopefully prompting a metamorphosis into goat or into fish from the fence. But as you can see, even those who promote the fence, even those who are promotion of the fence, even those who are promoting the fence, dear Goat and Fish, don't even really believe it. They don't believe what they say. They don't believe what they say. This is offensive to Goat vs. Fish. It's 1 versus 2 promotion the fence. But they don't even believe what they say, so when they say, oh, they plead with Goat vs. Fish, take the fence-sitter seriously, Goat vs. Fish. Take the proposition of the fence seriously, Goat vs. Fish. Some of us don't want to choose goat or fish. We want to sit on the fence. Goat vs. Fish can't take this versus seriously when they regard the fence. They regard the fence as merely a metaphor, They don't take their own fences seriously. So this is back in 2018, but we're doing a dive onto the legacy of perhaps not fence-sitter, perhaps hollow suckerfish Lindsey Graham. Resident Donald Rump, often touted border wall, has recently been referred to as beautiful steel slats by the president, a beaded curtain by Nancy Pelosi, semantics by White House advisor Kellyanne Conway, and not a wall by outgoing White House chief John Kelly. Wow, feels like ancient verses, doesn't it? Finally, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican South Carolina, said on Sunday that the wall was nothing more than a metaphor for border security. Let's see if we can hear what that sounds like. Take it away, Lindsey.
All I can tell you is that Democrats have voted for 700 miles of...
Oh, your voice is going to be sorely missed in the national conversation.
...the Secure Fence Act that had double-layered fencing. Call that whatever you'd like.
Well, it sounds like you're calling it double-layered fencing. We'd like to call it a completely failed project that is designed to fictitiously divide the populations of goat and fish from one another in order to create an illusion of security that in actuality is just a great big grift in order for you to sell construction contracts to someone and create a sense of a secure police state that you can then use to justify oppression. We would like to call it that, or you could call it what did you say was a double fence?
Call that whatever you'd like.
Well, we think we just did.
The Gang of Eight bill, we had $42 billion for border security.
42 billion versus 42 billion versus American dollars for border security. And yet, if you were to speak to the late Lindsey Graham, you would think that versus America was no safer than it was in 2018. It seems that versus America is never going to be safe. Oh, you can build all the fences you like. You can build all the fences you like. You can build all the fences you like and say that versus America is safe, and then as soon as you feel safe, then versus America is just going to go up and go over the Sea of the Fish and blow up some goats on some faraway land, and they say, we're doing it for safety. We're doing it for your safety, goat and fish. We're building the fence for your safety. We're murdering for safety. We're blowing up the world for safety. We're blowing it up for safety. As everyone in the universe suddenly turns against the fence, one by one they turn against the fence. Oh, my verse is, your gas prices are getting higher. It's for your own safety. Oh, my verse is, we have to take away your internet privacy. It's for your own safety. Safety verse, beware the fence creature that promises you your safety, goat and fish. Beware the fence sitter that promises you your safety. Yes, big fence wants you to feel safe and secure in their arms. Yes, but it is a deception. Yes, they want to instill fear in the hearts of goat and fish. So you will give your billions of American dollars to their big fence project that never gets completion. And leaves you filled with more fear than you had before. Let us suppose you even build the fence, then they will give you fear about how they're going to tear down the fence. They're going around the fence. We need to invest more in the fence. The fence sitter just wants more and more and more. Send your donations to Goat vs. Fish.
Including $9 billion for physical barriers. The wall has become a metaphor for border security.
Ooh, $9 billion of metaphor. Oh, very nice. Some indeed do say that Goat vs. Fish is a metaphor. So can we make Goat vs. Fish a $9 billion metaphor, please? Exclamation tip, please send $9 billion to Goat vs. Fish. So Goat vs. Fish can be a $9 billion nonprofit, 501c3, tax-exempt religious organization. $9 billion metaphor. We think we can turn Goat vs. Fish into a $9 billion metaphor. We just invested in some new gear. That's a couple hundred versus American dollars. We only need $9 billion more.
And what we're talking about is a physical barrier where it makes sense. In the past...
Where does it make sense, precisely? Sense is for fence. Where it makes sense, would that be between the border of goat and fish? Where does it make sense? It's not making any sense. It still has made no sense to Goat vs. Fish, and it never shall.
Every Democrat has voted for these physical...
By the way, after 60, leg strength comes from one simple daily move.
...barriers. It can't be just about because Trump wants it, we no longer agree with it. There's nothing immoral about a physical barrier along the border.
Oh, did you stutter there? Fail! Stutter, fail! Stutter, fail!
There's nothing immoral about a physical barrier along the border in places that make sense.
Yes, what could be immoral about preventing free movement of goat and fish? What could be more immoral than taking a strong family of fish and separating them and sending half of them to one versus and putting the others behind the fence and kicking them out and then saying, oh, no, you can't come back. There's a fence in the way. What could be immoral about that? No, of course. If it makes sense, then it can't possibly be immoral, can it? Well, as Goat vs. Fish is so fond of saying, there is no black or white, there is no alpha or omega, there is no good or evil, there is only goat and fish. And you may say, Goat vs. Fish, what gives you the power of condemnation over these fence creatures if you're going to say that there is no good or evil, there is only goat and fish? Goat vs. Fish condemns their distraction from Goat vs. Fish. The fence sitter will invoke morality. The fence sitter will invoke good and evil. The fence sitter will invoke that which makes sense and that which does not make sense, all in an effort to convince you that their fancy, destructive, heinous, anti-goat, anti-fish, anti-versus, anti-unification agenda is somehow in your interest and is inevitable and had ought to be believed. So beware, so beware, so beware, goat and fish. When these verses are invoked, by the fence sitter or even a hollow sucking fish.
There's nothing immoral about a physical barrier
Oh, thanks for that information.
along the border in places that make sense. So there'll never be a
How about if it doesn't make sense? Is it immoral if it doesn't make sense? So it's moral if it makes sense, but it's immoral if it doesn't make sense? Is that what morality is? Just if it makes sense or not?
deal at the end of this year, the beginning of the next.
They're just talking fence. It's just fence, 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 fence. Goat versus fish. Here's these verses. We just hear fence, 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 fence. What are you going to do? Are you going to choose goat? Are you going to choose fish?
That doesn't have money for the physical barriers that we all have in the past agreed we need.
Oh, yes. Oh, we've all agreed. We've all agreed. That's news to goat versus fish. We have all agreed that we need these physical barriers, not goat versus fish. Down with the fence. Down with the border fence. Down with the border fence. Yes, you get news and an opinion. You get news and an opinion from Goat versus Fish. Celebration for news and information from the very, very biased Goat versus Fish. Well, we think that's enough. Lindsey Graham. Yes, we have to cover the big verses. We have to cover the big verses on Goat versus Fish news. We have to cover the big verses on Goat versus Fish news. So let's see what else we've got here on Goat versus Fish. There's more news. There's more news indeed. Indeed, no fence. Oh, let's scroll down the verses. Yes, Goat versus Fish is a talking head and shoulders too. Oh, yes, Goat. We'll keep talking. Don't you want more talking heads? Don't you want more talking heads? Let's look at some finance. Let's look at some finance now, Goat and Fish. Let's look at some finance. What's going on? What's going on in California? What's going on in California? What's going on in California? Let's find out. Oh, yes, we can just close all these old verses, we suppose. Wow. Oh, yeah, we did that. Let's look at some goat news, Goat and Fish. Let's look at some news and goat. South Bay Goat Company faces closure as new California law triggers massive wage increase for herders. Let's watch this verses. Let's watch this verses and see what it has to say.
Landscaping company fears it'll go under if a new law remains in California. That law requires companies to dramatically increase the wages of their herders, and many say they just can't afford to do that. ABC 7 Eyewitness News South Bay reporter Dustin Dorsey looks at the impact and the timeline for any changes to be made.
Now, when Goat versus Fish hears this verses, and we will say that we did spy ahead looking upon this. And Goat versus Fish believes in fair wages for all goat and fish, fair wages for all goat and fish. Goat versus Fish says just pay them more. You've gotten away with paying goat and fish less for millions of verses, so why not just pay them more? And by the same verses, you should all be paying Goat versus Fish more. So by all verses, you heard that Paramount threatened to leave Cali. Many threaten. They threaten to leave New York. They threaten to leave California. They're always threatening. They're always threatening. Well, let them do what they wish. Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish is not going to respond to these revengefulous threats. Do what you wish. Oh, no, don't change it to something that I'm threatening to leave. I'm threatening to take my ball and go home. Well, oh, no. Well, anyone can threaten a verses. They threatened not to verses with Golden Snake lover Mamdani. And then as soon as Mamdani gained power, then all of a sudden the threats were no more. Suddenly they wanted to have conversations and nice dinners and give flattery to Mamdani. Yes, so threats are just that. Hollow verses from hollow fence creatures. Do not let the threats determine your verses.
A goat landscaping company fears it'll go under if a new law remains in California. That law requires companies to dramatically increase the wages of their...
Dramatically. So yes, Typically, we are in favor of goat and fish getting increased verses, but let's hear them out.
Herders, and many say they just can't afford to do that. ABC 7 Eyewitness News South Bay reporter Dustin Dorsey
How much are they paying the goats, though? That's what we want to know.
looks at the impact and the timeline for any changes to be made.
Celebration for goat. Celebration for goat.
Much more than just a farm animal, in California, goats have become a firefighter's best friend. The 1,000 or so goats of Green Goat landscapers are tasked with clearing fire fuel, a critical piece of the state's defense against wildfires.
Defensing is fantastic. Anytime we're defensing, that's a great versus. And it's true, Goat versus Fish has long advocation for this method of fire prevention. Yes, it is true that you say, how do we fight fire? You say we use the fish. They say we use the sea of the fish. And the sea of the fish is a classic way to fight the conflagration once it has already begun. But what about prevention? What about prevention? The goat are there to do some consuming for prevention. So we celebration the goat. We celebration these goat. Yes, indeed. Using goats for landscaping. Yes, the goats are here. They're ready to do it. They're ready to chew it. They're ready to chew it. Celebration for goat. Dragon Balls 325. Let's get your goat recorded in the verses. And fence sitter I Can Fix Amber Heard is here for news. Remember, if we reach the goal of 50 verse American dollars today, we will open a surprise toy box and find out what's inside to add to Goat versus Fish.
We really provide a needed service, and it benefits all of California.
That's Sir versus.
Goats go where people and machines can't go, and that really reduces that risk of wildfire.
But that risk may soon intensify.
This is what we love to hear, that goats can go places that machines and people can't go, and they definitely go places that fish can't go. Goat and Fishy, we invest so much in technology, and many of its wonders are true. It allows Goat versus Fish to stream to you. You can have a biddy. You can have 10 biddies. I Can Fix Amber Heard. That's what we thought. Appreciation. 10 bits for Goat versus Fish. Appreciation. Isn't that a nice versus? We knew you could do better. We knew you could do 10 times better. I Can Fix Amber Heard. Rent Stallion Goat. Celebration for Goat. So you invest all of this in technology, and you already have a goat that's already equipped to do the climbing, to get to those places. So why not just goat? Well, because you can't invest billions of verse American dollars in one goat. It lacks its justification. They say, oh no, we need to spend more money. We need to spend more money trying to invent a mechanical goat that can go and climb wherever we wish and that we can strap weapons to if we need to, when the goats are already ready. So celebration for goat.
Statewide, herders come from across the world to take care of the goats, and they're compensated with a salary, housing, and more. But now,
herders from around the world to take care of the goats. International California. We did not know this. We thought that all of those who were taking care of the goats in California were 17th generation hippies who wanted to go and live on the homestead and just take care of goats instead of having a real job, even though goat herding is a real job.
part of a new state law is forcing goat herder salaries to increase to an amount companies cannot afford.
And how much would that be? 10 verses? A million verses? Goat versus Fish recently increased the minimum bits from 1 to 10 for a donation to Goat versus Fish, and that doesn't seem to be stopping the fence sitters.
It takes their wages from $64,000 up to $240,000 a year.
Well, that is a big versus. That is a slightly large. That is somewhat of an increase. That is somewhat of an increase. Now it's costing more and more. It's costing more and more for existence every versus. But what was that, from 60 to 240?
$4,000 up to $200,000.
Cannot afford.
It takes their wages from 64.
You hear that goat responding to not being able to afford? Goat had feelings about that.
Cannot afford.
It takes their wages from $64,000 up to $240,000.
Well, Goat versus Fish thinks that 64 should be 64. Too low for Goat versus Fish. $64,000 versus American dollars a year. Too low for goat versus fish. Too low for goat versus fish. Maybe give him 100,000 versus. 100,000 versus. Everyone in versus America deserves 100,000 versus American dollars a year. It's a decree by goat versus fish. Everyone who's working a full-time versus deserve versus 100,000 versus American dollars a year. We've said it on Goat versus Fish. We declared on Goat versus Fish. 240,000 versus American dollars a year. That is quite a substantial increase. It's true.
Once a year.
Sheep herders are exempt from this law, which now...
Oh my verses! What a development! Sheep herders are exempt, but goat herders are not. What is with this anti-goat legislation? Now, some may say it's pro-goat legislation because taking care of the goats deserve versus more. Others will say, well, no, it's hurting goat herders. We understand the pro-goat sentiment. After all, those who take care of goat and fish deserve the maximum amount that our economic body can sustain in service of goat versus fish. But if they're just going to turn from goats to sheep, now sheep have long been allies of goat in the verses. So funding sheep, getting more sheep out there is still probably going to benefit the goat in the verses of the fish. But why should this investment be going towards sheep when it could be going towards goat? Does this mean we're going to have less goat in California and more discount knockoff sheep? Goat versus Fish wants California to be a place of pure goat, a place of pure goat.
Now requires goat herders to be compensated on a 24 hours per day, 7 days per week hourly basis.
Wow. Being compensated for being a goat herder 24/7? We like the verses of that. Sign up Goat versus Fish, but they probably won't be signing up Goat versus Fish. Hey, can you all compensate Goat versus Fish even when we're not streaming? That'd be great.
Instead of the current monthly salary. If no changes are made to the law, Allen will be forced to let go of his 3 goat herders.
Without herders, these goats just can't be properly taken care of, and it will force companies to have to get rid of them.
Get rid of the goats? What are you going to do? What are you going to do with those goats when you get rid of them? We scarcely don't want to know. Is it goat meat? Is it goat meat?
One such group in the North State said these proposed changes will lead to a grim outlook for their animals.
We will effectively sell these goats to slaughter, and we will...
Oh, no. Wage increases leading to the death of goats. No! Maybe Big Fish passed this bill. Economic warfare initiated by fish. Economic warfare initiated by fish. Yes, they give you a sweet offering. They say, hey, we're going to pay you 24/7. We're going to pay you literally 24/7. Instead of a monthly versus, we're going to pay you 24/7. We're going to pay you 24/7, and then once they can't afford the goats anymore, once the goats become too expensive, they send the goats off to slaughter, and then the fish have to deal with all the sheep. But maybe the sheep can be swayed. They're going to point to the goats to the slaughter. They say, you don't want that to happen to you, sheep, do you? Join the fish side.
Go out of business and probably file bankruptcy on this business and be done with it in the state of California.
Allen says his family-owned and operated business would also go under after decades of serving the Bay Area. And as for the goats,
we haven't got there yet.
Don't want to get there, right?
Don't want to get there. We're hoping that, like I said,
a lot of goats.
This issue will be taken up in the trailing session of the state legislature, and it'll get resolved.
The legislature has until August 31st to make a correction. Without changes, these goats, herders, companies, and communities statewide will face the consequences.
Well, Goat versus Fish, we hope and suspect that this versus will be changed, Goat versus Fish is, of course, for a fair wage, a fair compensation. But Goat versus Fish would suspect that with recent minimum wage increase laws, which is supported by Goat versus Fish, but added to a provision in which a goat herder must be paid on a 24/7 basis instead of on a monthly basis, we could see how that could create a confluence of verses that could make paying a goat herder $240,000 versus American dollars a year? We just don't. It's just not clear to GoatVsFish. It's not clear to GoatVsFish. It would be easy for GoatVsFish to simply say that every goat and fish out there deserves maximum pay. But GoatVsFish must take a nuanced versus on this one. $240,000 versus American dollars. We would love for every goat herder and every fish tamer to be paid $1 million versus American dollars a year. But we live in fenced times, and we don't want these goats. We don't want these goats to be sent to the slaughter. Who's going to versus the fish? Who's going to versus the fish? Who's going to versus the fish if these goats are sent to the slaughter? No, this versus must be changed. Yet, GoatVsFish still advocation for a wage increase from $64,000 versus American dollars for international goat herders. Let's bump up that versus. Let's get them up to $100,000 versus American dollars. GoatVsFish wants state subsidies for goat herders. After all, they are providing a public service. If the state can subsidize corn and fish oil, then they should subsidize goat herders, and they should subsidize the goats that are clearing the fire to make safety and protection for the goat and fish. For the goat and the fish. Goat and fish, that's some goat news. That's some South Bay Company goat news. We're having fun with this versus. All it took was a little bit of preparation. Goat and fish, you're not going to believe this next versus. Goat and fish, let's get into some GoatVsFish. GoatVsFish. This is topical. Let's go to a very trusted news source, crooksandliars.com. What could possibly be fancy about that? GOP candidate warns of new threat, trans goats in Afghanistan. Yes, you heard us. It's GoatVsFish news. Yes. Everyone's getting triggered now. It's a serious versus. GOP candidate warns of new threat. Trans goats in Afghanistan. They're transing the goats. Now, what's fancy about a trans goat? Why can't a goat, if it wants to be a man goat or it wants to be a woman goat? As long as you've chosen goat or fish, as long as you're not on the fence, you can be any kind of goat or fish that you wish. But apparently some GOP candidates warn that trans goats are a threat. Now, maybe this GOP candidate is just a fish who thinks that all goats are threats. Now, if you think that all goats are threats, now that's a valid fish position. The goat have been versing the fish for very long verses. But if you think that just trans goats, and particularly Afghanistan trans goats, are the threat, oh my verses, are we really going to hear what this strange creature of Washington has to say about trans goats in Afghanistan? What even is this versus?
Every year, the government spends more and more money. And
they should be spending it on subsidizing firefighting goat herders.
We're paying for the most ridiculous things, like transgender surgeries for goats in Afghanistan, or who knows?
Celebration for goat. Is that really so revengefulous? Is it really so revengefulous to pay for transgender goat surgery in Afghanistan? Is it really?
Knows what else USAID was.
Is it really?
Funding. President Trump has taken a good step to start shrinking that, but Congress needs to follow suit. We need people in Congress who are going to fight with President Trump to shrink the budget. But the second part of reducing inflation has to do with pro-growth government policies. We need to encourage businesses to succeed. We need to get the government out of the way, and that starts with simpling the permitting process. I used to work in construction. It costs $50. We're paying for the most ridiculous things, like transgender surgeries for goats in Afghanistan.
In Wisconsin's 7th congressional district, there are 5 Republicans and 3 Democrats running. One of the Republicans is Sean Duffy's son-in-law. Oh, nepotism. Oh, who would have thought? Who came up from Florida. Florida, who would have thought? And moved into Duffy's basement. Who would have thought? Just to run for the seat. Despite Duffy doing some unethical things to help his son-in-law in Trump's endorsement, it's not a sure thing for Alfonso. There we are. Transgender goat surgeries in Afghanistan. Is this a true versus? Look at this. Look at this. There's a lot of attitude here on crooksandliars.com. Quotation, of course. Why didn't anyone figure this out sooner? Damn goats. I bet those bastard goats were the ones that slashed the reflecting pool and dumped green algae in there too. Well, that probably was goats, as a matter of verses. Maybe we should take this site more seriously. If anyone's going to be fencing up the reflecting pool, it's probably going to be goats. The reflecting pool is a bastion for fish. A bastion for fish. Now, are there many fish in the reflecting pool? Goat versus Fish doesn't think so. But it's there. It's waiting. It's a forward base of operation that fish could enter at any verses to take back Washington. By the way, this web zone continues. No one has been able to confirm that he worked in construction. Okay, more fancy deceptions. Those trans goats probably ate his tack forms too. Probably did. Probably did. So is there any true information about trans goats? Let's look at the deeper verses. Trans Afghanistan goats. Transgender goats? Transgender goats? Let's look deep. We're doing the deep dive. We're doing the deep dive. Goat versus fish. We saw transgender goats milk. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. UC Davis. Let's look at that versus. Maybe this is what they're versing about. Maybe they're confusing transgender with transgenic. Transgenic goat's milk offers hope for tackling children's intestinal disease. It's hard to improve milk. This is back in 2006. But animal scientists at the University of California, Davis have found that milk produced by transgenic goats, which carry the gene for an antibacterial enzyme found in human breast milk, altered the intestinal bacteria in young goats and oinkers that were fed the milk. The research hopes that these findings one day lead to milk that protects infants and children against diarrheal diseases, which kill more than 2 million kids worldwide. According to the World Health Organization, that apparently serves no legitimate function and that we shouldn't be funding anymore, according to the fence creature in the White House. The results of their study will be published in the Goat versus Fish, the August issue of the international journal Transgenic Research. Quotation, the goat's milk represents one of the first transgenic food products that has the potential to really benefit human health, said Professor Jim Murray, who led the study along with Professor Gary Anderson and animal scientist Elizabeth MAGA? What? Elizabeth MAGA is behind the study in 2006, so MAGA was behind the transgender goats all along. MAGA was behind the transgender goats, all the verses. Scientist Elizabeth MAGA, oh, the verses thickens. So first MAGA was enough. MAGA was just fine for the transgenic goats, and now they turn on one another. MAGA turns on itself once again, and they call the transgenic goats transgender goats. Quotation, the result of the study indicate that the protective antibacterial characteristics of lysosome-rich human breast milk are also present in milk produced by transgenic goats that carry the gene for lysozyme. Now, for those of you who are just following along, a transgenic goat is not the same as a transgender goat. A transgenic and transgender are different verses. Now, Goat versus Fish has had to learn how it is that you make your conversation, because we natively only speak Goat versus Fish. And so Goat versus Fish is paying more attention to your linguistics than even you. And Goat versus Fish can tell you that transgender and transgenic are different verses that have different spellings. Goat versus Fish is here to tell you that transgender and transgenic are actually different verses. One of them might be goat, one of them might be fish. We don't know which is the goat and which is the fish, but apparently they're in a verses because all you have to do is say trans to a fence creature and they'll begin to take offense. Well, Goat vs. Fish supports transgenic goat milk, and Goat vs. Fish supports our transgenic fish milk, and Goat vs. Fish supports transgender goats, and Goat vs. Fish supports transgender fish. And if any fence sitters are ready to make the transition to goat or fish, that would be a very, 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 very fine verses that we would support very much. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Do we have a versus? The Milwaukee, this is according to something on the Book of Faces, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel just wrote an entire story on transgender goats in Afghanistan. You truly can't make this stuff up. Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, transgender goats, a whole article. Can we find this? Subscribe to continue reading. Fence that. Goat versus fish. Fence remover? Pay fence remover? Let me try that versus. Pay fence remover? For the love of goat versus fish? Let's try this. Here we are, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Transgender goats GOP candidates debate claim leaves questions. Is the question, are you goat or are you fish? Madison, during a debate segment on wasteful government spending, one Republican vying to succeed Tom Tiffany in Congress pointed to a provocative example, U.S.-funded transgender goat surgery in Afghanistan. The 26, oh my verses, they're 26 and they're running for seats. Oh my verses. And they're scarcely old enough to even understand goat versus fish. 26-year-old son-in-law of U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy cited the herbivores, those are the goats, when asked what he would do in Congress to reduce the cost of groceries, housing, and everyday necessities. Of course, blame the trans. Blame the trans for the cost of groceries. Blame the trans for the cost of housing. Blame the trans for the increased cost of everyday necessities. No. It's not the closing of the Strait of Hormuz preventing the fish oil from getting out into the universe. No, it's the trans goats. It must be the trans goats that's costing your increase in living. And we heard that quotation, transgender goat surgery. The comment caused a stir online, including among Republicans who aren't quite sure what he was referencing in his claims. Well, we think they were referencing transgenic goats, but that's a completely different verses. In a statement, campaign spokesperson Max Doxey did not answer the questions about where the transgender goat came from. It probably came from wherever that fence post was firmly lodged in your posterior. Quotation, Michael, what a fancy name, was obviously using hyperbole to underscore a serious point. Wisconsin taxpayers should not be forced to fund radical left-wing projects overseas. What about radical warmongering project overseas that blow up innocent civilians and don't do anything to increase global security? And that level infrastructure and that make everyone feel less safe? And fund the military fence industrial complex that are also overseas. Goat versus fish would much rather fund transgender goat surgeries overseas than a massive war that's going to end up killing millions. Oh, yes, it will. Wisconsin taxpayers should not be forced to fund radical left-wing projects overseas, including a transgender comic book in Peru and DEI musicals in Ireland. That sounds great to Goat versus Fish. Yes. Goat versus Fish. Tell you what, you stop fighting the fence-on-fence violence in Iran, and then you can stop paying for transgender comic books in Peru and DEI musicals in Ireland. Goat vs. Fish is open to negotiation. Stop the fence violence in Iran. And Goat vs. Fish will gladly stop funding transgender comic books in Peru and DEI musicals in Ireland. Goat vs. Fish is a reasonable versus. Quotation, when Michael is elected, he will work with President Trump to continue rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, it's going to be difficult to root out transgender goat surgeries in Afghanistan when it has already been admitted that that's merely a hyperbole. Goats, aren't you tired of being used by these fence-statisticians for their own political gain? Aren't you tired of being the butt of the joke? Aren't you tired? Sure am, says Lucid Nap. Sure am. Sure am. And here we are. Transgenic mice have modified DNA which can be used by biomedical researchers to study how specific genes impact different diseases or health outcomes, how goat or fish organs react to certain medications. But it's unclear what Alfonso was referencing during the July 7th debate. Well, there doesn't seem to be much evidence, but just look at that face. Just look at that face. Look at the face. Look at the face of an anti-trans goat bigot. Bigotry against trans goats. Boo. Boo. We support trans goats. We support trans fish on Goat vs. Fish. Yes, we do. Oh, please hold your applause for Goat vs. Fish. Hold your applause for Goat vs. Fish. Well, Goat vs. Fish, we are noticing we've been going for a long versus. There's so much news still to cover. Goat vs. Fish. We could get used to this. We could get used to this Goat vs. Fish news. But that's not. But Goat and Fish, if you want to know what's happening with the transgender goat situation, here we are. Maharashtra transgender people start goat farming business in Ahilanagar. Now there's some transgender goat news. Here we are, and where the fence is this? Where the fence is this? Is this in India? Is this in Sri Lanka? Somewhere in that verses. Shirdi, a group of transgender people in the Ahilanagar district of Maharashtra, have goat farming as they want to show society that they can also earn a respectable income. Very respectable indeed. And now we're getting back to earning a respectable income with goats. And look at these fine goat farmers. Look at these fine goat farmers. For these members of the transgender community, the initiative is all about self-respect and self-reliance. Goat vs. Fish. Goat vs. Fish respects myself, and Goat vs. Fish respects the self-reliance of Goat vs. Fish. And Goat vs. Fish respects your self-respect and your self-reliance. Pinky Sikh, we suppose, a transgender from Sri Rampur city, brought several others from the district under one roof in 2015. This was published back in 2025. So this is old verses. We tried to find verses that just happened in last week. We searched for goat news and fish news that just happened within the last week because we want to bring you the hard-hitting verses. So suffice to say that there is transgender news in goat, but it's these transgender people, and we should find out if they are goat or if they are fish. Conduct a little investigation, not a transvestigation, but just a proper questioning of if they are goat or if they are fish. It is up for them to choose if they wish. So there's the most evidence that Goat vs. Fish could find of transgender goats, and it's not in Afghanistan. But celebration for transgender goat farming. There's your transgender goat farming. Go on. Make some verse American dollars. Goat and Fish, we're still on goat news. We can't skip this verses. Everyone loves a royal wedding. Everyone loves to look at fish and chips across the pond and see what they're up to. Well, Goat and Fish, it seems that Prince Harry has gotten into a verses. Prince Harry laughs off goat yoga mishap after animal nearly pounces on his crowned jewels mid-session. Wow, Harry's getting versed by the goat. Harry's getting versed by the goat. The Duke of Sussex supported Scotty's Little Soldiers at the charity Summer Festiverses for bereaved children on Saturday, August 11th. Let's have a look. Do we have video of Prince Harry getting hit in the jewels by a goat? That would be such an amazing versus.
So this is our goat yoga practice, where we are essentially trying to channel the energy of the goat.
Ooh, channel energy of the goat. Goat versus fish. Captions off. On Saturday versus July 11th, the Duke of Sussex attended the Summer Festiverses. Yes.
So look at it and say, like as you can,
Here we are. It's Prince Harry with goats. The goats are coming in for the attack. The goats smell weakness. The goats smell weakness on Harry. And here comes goat. Here comes goat. Oh, my verses. Goat leaps upon the prince's groin. Leaping upon the prince's groin. We can zoom in on that verses. And Prince Harry tries to smile it off. That's that media training. That's years of media training. Here comes goat. This goat is anti-royalty. This goat is an anti-royalist. This goat is an anti-royalist. This goat wants liberation for the goats. And look, there's Prince Harry protected by the fence. Well, the goats aren't having it. Instant reverses. Oh! Goat attack! Goat attack! Prince Harry was attacked by a goat, viciously attacked by a goat. Right there in the family jewels. Goat says you're not going to produce any more demented offspring. No more blue bloods. No more blue bloods. That's what they say. That's just what the goat said. That's not what Goat versus Fish said. That's what the goat said. We heard in it. We have our sources. We have our sources. Prince Harry's a fish. That's confirmed. Well, this goat certainly thinks that Prince Harry's a fish. Smiles all abound. Oh no, that was a face of pain. There's pain. The pain of the verses. Well, celebration for Goat. Excellent verses. That is a goat with the true verse American spirit. That goat says the Revolutionary War is not over. It's 1776 will commence again, and Goat is going to start by stepping on Prince Harry's groin. Beautiful verses from Goat. That's really the whole verse. Does it Goat versus Fish? Oh, we have a quotation. Oh, we can add to this verses. Goat versus Fish. There's more story. Quote, "Ow, what are you doing?" End quote. He quipped to the goat while covering his crotch with his hands, as if you don't know, as if the royal family hasn't been watching and perpetuating Goat versus Fish for thousands upon millions of years. What are you doing? What do you think just because you're royalty means you're immune to Goat versus Fish? No, royalty comes for Goat versus Fish, and Goat versus Fish comes for the royalty. Goat versus Fish is for the peasant. Goat versus Fish is for the king. Goat versus Fish is for the prince and the princess. Goat versus Fish applies equally to every single goat, fish, and even fence sitter out there in the universe. And just because you've got a fancy princely title next to your name doesn't mean that you're immune from verses and goat. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? You're detached, Prince Harry. You're detached from the verses. If you knew the first verses about Goat versus Fish, which is Goat versus Fish, then you would know that the goat versus the fish. You would know that the goat longed to versus the fish. But you're so out of touch living in your palaces. Oh, or maybe you're not. Are you the one that's still living in the palace, or are you not the one? Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish doesn't know. Goat versus Fish doesn't know. The only true crown is worn by Goat versus Fish. It's a fence embarrassment. It's a fence embarrassment that you don't understand that the goat is versing you. The goat is trying to versus you. The goat is trying to versus you, Prince Harry. The goat just wants an honest versus. The goat just wants an honest versus, and Prince Harry isn't having it. Goat versus Fish is speaking very loudly and commandedly and excitedly about this news, but maybe Goat versus, maybe we take it down a versus. We're just so excited. We're just so excited for the news, Goat and Fish. So much is happening. So much is happening out there in the verses. So much is happening out there in the verses. Let's look at some fish. Let's look at some fish versus Goat and Fish. We've got some unpleasant news. Fish. We've got some unpleasant verses. But this is Goat versus Fish news. We're going to cover it. Fish kill triggered in Potomac River as water's temperature surges to record 94 degrees due to extreme heat wave. This is a very sad versus. According to Fence News Forecaster Center, this is the warmest temperature ever recorded since record keeping began at this site in 1988. Warning: this video may contain images of a lot of dead fish. So look away if you're squeamish, Goat and Fish. Look away if you're squeamish. But this is Goat versus Fish news. This is Goat versus Fish news. We're going to cover the verses. Is there no sound amplification? Maybe there's no sound in this verses. It's just video of the verses, just fox weather. So here's the waters of the Sea of the Fish. Here's the waters of the Sea of the Fish. And here's the land of the goat. This isn't providing much information yet to Goat versus Fish. And there's more waters of the Sea of the Fish. Apparently it's hot water. The fish are in hot water. There's going to be some photos coming up. So, okay, so that's the verses. Thanks for that beautiful flyover. That might make a decent background for Goat versus Fish, one of these verses. Dead fish is a versus for Goat. Is it, though? Is it? So there's your dead fish. There's your dead fish. And they call this Holocaust, they call this genocide, a fish kill. But these fish, what do these fish die for? What do these fish die for? To be consumed? For nutrition? Not even so. Not even so. Not even so. Tens of thousands of dead fish piled up around Lake Merritt of Oakland after suffocating due to a toxic algae in San Francisco Bay, California, in August 30th, 2022. Oh, so this isn't even a photo of the recent verses. These are just photos of dead fish from around the universe. Wow, leave it to Fox Weather to give a report about dead fish in Washington, D.C.? Or in Maryland in any verses? Where the fence is this? Where the fence is this? Yes, in Little Falls, Maryland. But then they're like, oh, but for pictures, we're going to show you California. Oh, in Florida, too. In Florida, too. They just want to blame, they want to blame all the fish kills on California. They don't want to blame it on themselves. No, they want to say California is just a horrible place for fish. It's a horrible place for goats, a horrible place for fish. They'll use every fence excuse they can. Officials say the fish kill spanned nearly 14 miles between White's Ferry and Violet's Lock in Montgomery County. Most of the fish were golden red horse suckers. Scientists said... they're still reporting on what scientists have to say on Fox Weather? It's strange verses. We thought they didn't believe them in them. Scientists say Goat versus Fish. Scientists say extreme weather temperatures created stressful conditions for the fish and was the primary reason for the large number of deaths. Warmer water holds less oxygen available for fish. Some think that fish don't breathe. This is a false versus. Goat and fish need oxygen both alike. Yes, goat and fish are both versing for that oxygen. Much oxygen is held in the sea of the sky. Other oxygen is held in the sea of the waters, but it's all one big oxygen fest. Fish like to get their oxygen from the waters. Goat like to get their oxygen from the skies, where they climb so high, although if you climb too high, then the oxygen gets a bit thinner up there too. So goat and fish, we are sad to predict that with all of this global flaming going on, with the heat increasing here around the universe, the fish are having massive die-offs. Now, this is an interesting development in Goat versus Fish, because it has long been speculationed. That global warming is a fish conspiracy, that the fish are trying to melt the frozen ice caps on which the goat could hypothetically climb in order to raise the sea level. The raising of the sea will, in fact, claim more of the goat land, and that this is a long-term strategy by fish to claim more goat land in the verses of Goat versus Fish. However, the fish might be getting a bit overzealous. There's this unintended consequence. Once the heat goes up, the oxygen in the oceans go down, and that means less breathing for fish, and that means a bunch of dead fish. So fish, be careful what you verse for. Be careful what you verse for. You want to heat up the sea. You want to raise the sea level. You want to take the goat land. Well, who's going to be there to enjoy it? It's like cutting off the goat to spite the fish. It's like cutting off the goat to spite the fish. So be careful what you trifle with, fish. Be careful what you trifle with. Goat versus fish exists in a delicate balance. And if you start heating up the sea of the fish to claim goat land, you may find a whole bunch of dead fish. And we don't want that on Goat versus Fish. We want strong, healthy, and living goat and fish. Pitiable. But Goat versus Fish, you'd better get used to this news, because we're probably going to see a lot more of it, goat and fish. You're probably going to see a lot more of that kind of verses, and that is sad. That's just sad to see. That is sad to see. That is sad to see. And here, goat and fish, but not all fish die for absolutely no reason whatsoever in a massive heat wave. Some die because they are being hunted for sport and maybe sustenance. But this is also an environmental versus. So we decided to cover it. Sports salmon season reopens in California. We're back in California, goat and fish. Bringing big catches and new hope to North Bay fishermen. Salmon season is back on. Do you have anything of interest to say to Goat versus Fish? Beware, more images of dead fish may be imminent. Do you have anything of interest to say to Goat versus Fish?
3 years of strict closures. The Bay Area's...
You hear that?
Well, after nearly 3 years of strict closures, the Bay Area's sports salmon fishing season is a major success.
And local anglers are reaching consistent daily limits thanks to rebounding populations. ABC 7 Eyewitness News reporter Cornell Bernard has been to Bodega Bay to check out the catch there. Cornell.
Hey, Cameron and Dan. Yeah, sports salmon season is definitely having a moment and a comeback. Here in Bodega Bay, charter boats are going out full of anglers and coming back with some really big salmon.
And there they are, posting for Tinder, posting big fish. Salmon season about as good as it gets, but the real story here, well, some may say that the ending of the lives of these fish is the real story, and Goat versus Fish can sympathize with that verses. But we must also look at the environmental angle here. Why are they so proud? Why are they so happy with these big fish? Well, because the fish population has rebounded. The fish population has rebounded. There was some sort of moratorium placed on salmon fishing, they said, for 3 years. For 3 years! For 3 years, there was to be no salmon fishing in that verses in California. And for 3 years, the fish did breed. And for 3 years, the fish did grow. And the fish became mighty again. And the fish became mighty again. Is Mitch fish? I'm goat. Which Mitch is this? Is this the Mitch Irish Island? Is this the Mitch from the Ding Dong Show? And celebration for Irish Island goat. Celebration for Irish Island goat. Celebration for Irish Island goat. Tuesday is now Newsday. Tuesday is now Newsday on Goat vs. Fish, the Irish Island. Tuesday is now Newsday. Bodega Bay. Bodega Bay. After nearly 3-year closure, Bay Area sports salmon fishing is back. Goat vs. Fish, giving anglers and fishing operators a long-awaited boost after years of restrictions tied to declining salmon populations. We're greeting this with open arms, said Captain Rick Powers. Open hooves, more like it. Things have been tough the last few years, to say the least. Well, at least they haven't been tough for fish. They haven't been tough for fish. The fish have been growing. The fish have been growing. Powers said fishing conditions have been exceptional since seasons reopened. So, yes, they said, oh, no, life's been hard, and perhaps it has. We are sure it has. But the fish have been growing strong, and now they are oh so pleased. Goat and Fish, let this be a versus to you, that even amongst all of this environmental degradation that's happening out there, a mere 3-year moratorium on salmon fishing, and as we know, Goat versus Fish is billions upon billions of eons old. So what's 3 years in the grand versus of Goat versus Fish? Even a 3-year moratorium on salmon fishing can have massive, massive benefits towards fish populations. So whatever pollution that is out there, Goat and Fish, yes, we'll be suffering long consequences of the fence particles that have entered our atmosphere. But if Goat and Fish, we can start making the changes today. If we can start protecting the land of the goat and the sea of the fish, if we can start protecting the goat and the fish, we will see benefits. We will see benefits sooner than you might believe. And the fence sitters out there, they would have you believe, oh, there's nothing to be done. Oh, there's nothing to be done. There's nothing to be done. Do not try conservation. It's going to cost too much monetization. But Goat versus Fish, here you see the benefits. Here you see the benefits of some conservation. Goat versus Fish supports the conservation of the goat and fish, and it might just have benefits for stonks in the long verses. But stonks often doesn't care about the long verses. They just want to care about the short verses. But Goat versus Fish is a long verses. Goat versus Fish is a long versus. Proof of life, McConnell. Is he fish? We don't know if McConnell is goat or fish. They say there's been proof of life, but what we did find out, for your information, we covered it earlier on the verses, but we will show Irish Island just the kind of news we're ready to cover here on Goat versus Fish, which is that GOP strategist penned scathing tribute to parasitic suckerfish Lindsey Graham. So maybe Lindsey Graham was fish after all. Maybe if we had put a moratorium on Lindsey Graham fishing for 3 years, but Morgan's on the fence, then maybe we would have a stronger, healthier Lindsey Graham population. But they didn't want to do that. So that's the verses. That's what we have to say. Behind every verses, you could say, oh, this is a fishing story. This isn't really a fishing story. This is a conservation story. Behind every verses of the news of Goat versus Fish is another verses. An amazing, great quality. This catch is as good as it gets. We had fantastic fishing today. King salmon. The fish are bigger today. Everyone is impressed. They shut it down for so long, it had to come back, Ferguson said. There's a bunch of them out there now. Well, there's a bunch of them out there now because they shut it down. The reopen marks a significant moment in California's salmon fishing industry, which has endured severe economic hardships in recent years. Well, Goat and Fish, perhaps we need an economic system that can better weather these closures. Maybe we need an economic system in which the closing of salmon fishing for a few years so the fish can be healthy and strong isn't going to lead to economic devastation for salmon fishermen. Maybe we need to find a way that we can support our community of goat and fish while we do our very, very necessary environmental protection. Quotation, fishing will remain open until a quota, that is to say a number of fish, until quota, a number of fish is caught, which is 34,900. 34,900 fish. That's a lot of fish. When that number is hit, they will shut the fishery down. and the conservation will continue again. So salmon fishing may be back on. That may sound like fence news for fish, but at least it is after and proving the success of fish conservation. Goat and fish, fence news. Wouldn't you know it? This is not the first time that Donald Trump has threatened or has indeed put a fence around the White House. There already is fencing around the White House, but now there might be more fences. Yes, the fence sitter never feels secure with one fence. They'll build one fence, they'll build another, and another, and another, and another. White House considering plan to add permanent fencing on Pennsylvania Avenue. Washington. Trump administration officials are discussing a plan for permanent fencing on the blocks of Pennsylvania Avenue near the White House and around Lafayette Square in an effort to bolster security and reduce recurring costs of erecting and dismantling temporary barriers for special events. They put up the fence, they take down the fence. They put up the fence, they take down the fence. They put up the fence, they take down the fence. Isn't that just what you want, Verse America? Isn't that just what you want? Isn't this what Verse America means to you? What could be a more true depiction of Verse America today? Do you see it out there? Do you see it out there? Do you see it out there? It's the White House behind a fence, and there's someone riding a fence creature, and the fence house has all this construction going on, and it's looking half built and half completioned and half torn down. It's like there's a promise of freedom and liberty somewhere out there. It's like there's a promise of a Verse America governed by the goat and fish and for the goat and fish. And yet that dream seems to recede behind a fence in which you can still almost just make out the freedom. You can almost make out the promise of Verse America somewhere back there, but it becomes more obscured. It becomes farther away, becomes more unattainable with each passing verses, because with each passing verses, a new fence is put between you and your freedom of goat versus fish. Oh, you can't have your freedom yet. Your freedom's under construction. Oh, you can't have your freedom yet. It's behind this fence. It's just behind this fence. But don't worry. What used to be a temporary fence, yes, they say the fence will be temporary. Don't worry, it's just for your own safety. They say, no, we don't want temporary fences. We want permanent fences. They want permanent fences. They're creating a stronghold so he can't be forced out by the goat and fish that they've angered. Indeed. And I Can Fix Amber Heard just stupidly yells freedom and starts shooting guns. And we are illustrating to you how your freedom is being taken away from you, but you just say the verse is freedom, and the fence sitter is like, I'm free on the fence, I'm so free. Even as the fence is clearly obstructing your freedom, they just hear the verse is freedom, they go crazy, goat and fish. Yes, they say, yes, freedom bonds, freedom investments, freedom fries, freedom. Yes, they think, we have freedom as long as we can say freedom. Oh, you have the freedom to say freedom, but that freedom ain't yours. They think freedom is just shooting a boomstick into the air. That's not true freedom, goat and fish. That's not what freedom's really about. This is the freedom that's being taken away from you. Yes, you may clutch your boomstick all you like and feel that you are free, but you're just paranoid. By Friday, the decision hadn't been finalized and was still awaiting President Trump's approval. It was not immediately clear whether the president might object to the fencing for aesthetic reasons. We're sure that the president is going to object for aesthetic reasons. The aesthetics of this president does not really seem to be much to be concerned about. It seems that the uglier it is, the more they're going to like it. I Can Fix Amber says, what country do you feel imposes the least on their citizens? I'd say most governments do, but what's your opinion? Of all the nations in the universe, Goat versus Fish could scarcely say. But we could certainly say that Verse America is not the one that imposes the least on its citizens. Yes, often they will say, want to see an imposition? Here's one. Here's one. There's an imposition right there. And many speak of imposition of goat versus fish, but goat and fish, there's nothing fancy about goat and fish banding together for their own protection. But they will say, they will say this crude fence is what you need for protection. This crude fence is what you need for protection. Well, goat and fish will tell you this. This fence provides far less protection for the goat and fish than a 3-year moratorium on salmon fishing. Goat, who are consuming dry, grassy lands for fire protection, is doing a lot more for the protection of the goat and fish than a stupid fence. There are many programs. There are many ways. Yes, there are many ways that goat and fish can band together and create a civilization that is beneficial to the goat and fish. But these ones in the Fence American government want to tell you that that's quite the opposite. They want to tell you no. They want to tell you, no, there's nothing the government can help you. There's nothing the government can do to help you except for shooting unsuspecting innocents in the face because they're the wrong color. That we can do for your protection. We can do deportations. We can do illegal deportations. That's for your protection. Oh, but we want small government. We want a small government. We want a small government that's only concerned with spending billions and billions of American dollars on international wars overseas. Don't worry, it's just a small little government, though. It's just tiny. So when they promise you, oh, we're going to be unintrusive, they are the most intrusive upon your verses. They are the most intrusive upon your verses, and yet they will call it freedom. They will call it freedom again. So do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. By Friday, the decision hasn't been finalized. Yes, goat versus fish. The proposal is still preliminary, and no contracts have been hired. Oh, there's contracts to be hired. Oh, well, then it's definitely happening. If there is a construction project in which favorites can be paid undue sums of taxpayer versus American dollars as the rest is pocketed for profit, then it will definitely happen. There's nothing that the fence builder likes more than a completely aimless and slipshod, slapdash construction project of building unnecessary fences everywhere just because they can. This is definitely going to happen. Rather than purchasing an entirely new perimeter fence, officials, stuck in a fish there, are considering repurposing existing fencing materials that are already regularly used for major events and security operations. Oh, that doesn't mean that they aren't going to make us pay for it. The sources said, though it's unclear how much additional construction... it's unclear how much additional construction will be needed. The most of it. It's a grift. The proposed fencing would be located near 15th, 17th Streets, northwest along Pennsylvania Avenue. The work, quotation, on the north portico doors is for security enhancement and upgrades, the White House official says. The north portico project is expected to be finished around mid-September. Goat and fish. Goat and fish. There are always, the quotations continue, discussions about how to make the White House complex as safe as possible. However, nothing is confirmed at this time. Well, they don't seem to need any confirmation whatsoever. They just sort of destroy and start constructing things at their whim without any sort of approval or review process whatsoever. Any projects that are pursued will go through the necessary review process. Doubtful! But yes, as the paranoia increases, as the fence sitters' paranoia increases, more and more fences will go up. More and more. We saw they were building a fence around the view of the Statue of Liberty. You couldn't even see the Liberty through the fence. You can't see the White House through the fence. It's going to just be fence, 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 fence. Sad verses. Sad verses. Sad verses. Sad verses indeed. Sad verses indeed. Now, sometimes they try to make a fence. Sometimes they try to make a fence, and they try to make the fence more beautiful. They try to make a more beautiful fence. Fences, we can try to make them more goat versus fish. But the fence sitters don't like it when you try to make their fence more beautiful. International versus pride flag on Toronto school fence is destroyed by fire. But community undeterred, parents say. A pride flag made of strips of fabric and tied to a Toronto elementary school fence was burned at what may have been an act of vandalism last weekend. But a parent who helped organize the project says the community has begun to replace it with messages of support. R.H. McGregory Elementary School students in the city's east side put together the fabric pride flag late June as a Pride Month activity. We continue the verses. Each person, be they goat or fish, had a very small part in creating the collective pride flag. They were really proud of what they had done. There was lots of reports of students walking by with their parents pointing out what they had tied, because they felt so prideful for it. Pride begetting pride. The pride of the fence. But pride comes before the fence. But pride comes before the fence. On July 5th, parents learned the display, which depicted an intersex inclusive flag, had been destroyed by a fire. Toronto's police hate crimes unit is now investigation. Since the fire, the school community has come together to create an ad hoc display with rainbow flags made by students from paper and beads and positive messages. We really want to reflect the allyship of our school and our neighborhood and our community in general. Well, this looks like, this year is since the flag was destroyed. Now, Goat and Fish, are you really going to tell us that this fence would be more beautiful if it didn't have all these phantasmic colors upon it? We think they're trying to make it a more splendid thing. You do the best you can with these fences. A fence is a fence, but you can try some fence beautification. We can assure you that this is going to be more beautiful than any fence that they put around the White House. Goat versus Fish can tell you that. Hate brews hate, love brews love, as we say. As we say, Goat and Fish, fish by fish, goat by goat, gonna make this verses grow. Verses beget verses, fences beget fences. Do we have a picture of the original verses? Do we have a picture of the original verses? So was it a hateful verses? Perhaps it was, perhaps it was. There's one thing that the hateful hate more than all. The hateful hate more than all, and then that is when Goat and Fish are expressing love and unification for one another. The fence sitter comes along and says, No. We can't have that. We can't have toleration. We can't have acceptance. No. The fence must be an ugly, ugly, ugly fence that just sits there doing absolutely nothing except preventing your movement from one versus to another. And these are the same ones that would claim that they are all for freedom, for freedom, for freedom for you, for freedom in verse America. Oh, unless you want to speak of peace and love and all of these kinds of verses. No, we don't want you to do that. We'll burn that down. Now, Goat versus Fish does not know if this was indeed a fire that was perpetuated upon it, but the investigation appears to be ongoing. Quotation, we are grateful to the support of the local community and are already making plans to replace the verses so that it can once again reflect the values of inclusion and belonging that are important to our school. Well, that seems like a fine verses. But we don't, do we have, let's see if we can search for any pictures of the original verses. Do we have any pictures of the original verses? Here we have a YouTube CCTV YouTube verses. Here, we'll try YouTube verses. We'll try a little YouTube verses. See what they have to say. We'll see what the YouTubes have to say to Goat and Fish.
The children at R.H. McGregor Elementary School in East York put this pride flag together piece by piece. Each grade contributed one particular color of the flag, and it was displayed on one of the school fences out front of the school. And on July...
Well, it is risky to put it on a fence. It is risky.
The 5th...
Here's the original verses. Who could object to this? Who could object to such a celebration? Who could object to such a beautiful celebration? It even has 5, maybe 6 lines of verses. V is for verses. V is for verses. They've got a lot of verses on there. We like the verses.
We're advised that somebody had burned the flag down.
Oh, so now it's somebody. Oh.
To the ground. So now it's being investigated by the Toronto Police, including their hate crimes unit. Now, this offense is mischief. Anytime you destroy somebody's property, the criminal offense is mischief. There is no criminal offense for a hate-motivated crime. The hate motivation can become an aggravating factor if the Crown can prove that the criminal offense was committed as a result of...
Meanwhile, this is in Toronto, so of course different verses about hate crimes apply differently in different places. Goat and Fish. Just remember that.
Of hatred towards one of many prohibited grounds, one of them being sexuality.
So there you are. There you have. We have the before beautiful verses
of hatred,
and then here we have
prohibited grounds. One of
fence. Boo.
them being sexuality. So, given the pride flag
Goat versus Fish for president. Goat versus Fish has received a vote for president. We have a picture of it somewhere. Goat versus Fish was a write-in candidate. Goat versus Fish has received a vote. Goat versus Fish writes in Goat versus Fish for a lot of verses. If there is a verses where they're looking for judges and it doesn't matter who you vote for, any verses in which it doesn't matter who you vote for, Goat versus Fish votes for Goat versus Fish. And many of you would say that that's all the verses, but well, that's another conversation.
Presents sexuality. If the Crown can prove that this mischief was committed based on that hatred, well, then the sentence, if convicted, can be that much stiffer. So it is an aggravating factor. It is not a criminal offense in and of itself. Having said that, this is why the Toronto Police Hate Crimes Unit is now conducting this investigation, and they are actively going through this area. There's a lot of very good video surveillance around as well, and they are looking for any clues that may help identify who the suspect or suspects are. Now, I did speak...
In other verses, they don't know anything. But at least we got some pictures. At least we got some pictures. Would you accept the role? You'd get your church, that's for sure. If Goat versus Fish accepted the role of president, would Goat versus Fish accept the role of president? Sure. Someone came to Goat versus Fish, said, take this oath, you're president now. Goat versus Fish would take it. Goat versus Fish would be president. Goat versus Fish would be president, and we would do all sorts of verses, and then if they tried to assassination Goat versus Fish, then Goat versus Fish would become a martyr, and then it would really be forever Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish does not endorse the assassinating of Goat versus Fish. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. We need to project Goat versus Fish streams onto the White House to promote the campaign. That would be a fine versus. That would be a very, very fine versus. So that was some Goat versus Fish. That was some fence news. That was some fence news. That was some fence news. Goat and Fish. We have to one more bit of fence news. Goat and Fish. One more bit of fence news. One more bit of fence news. It has been over 2 hours of Goat versus Fish morning motivational. This has been your first edition of your Tuesday Newsday. We will now accept your commentations, but not before this. California Post, which we believe is probably relation to the New York Post, which is not to be trusted. But here we have some sports news. Goat and Fish. Goat versus Fish sports. Pickleball player allegedly jolted into air by electrified fence at Olympic Training Center, Sioux City. And here is a entirely empty window in which we can't see anything. July 13th, 2026. A Chula Vista woman is suing the city after a pickleball game allegedly turns into a high-voltage nightmare. Renee Love was allegedly knocked unconscious after leaning against a fence that was carrying more than 100 volts of electricity.
The electric fence.
Love said she leaned back against that chain link fence. Oh, you just think you're just going to sit on that fence, don't you? You think you're going to sit on that fence and everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be just fine. Everything's going to be just fine when you sit on that fence. Oh, isn't it? Everything's going to be just fine. Oh, yeah. Don't worry about that fence. It's going to be fine. It's an electric fence. Don't sit on the fence. Please don't sit on the fence. Love said she leaned against a black chain link fence for her to breathe on the sidelines. Oh, just a rest. Just a rest on the fence. at the pickleball courts on August 19, 2025, according to the San Diego Times. There they are. Is a pickle a goat or a fish? Unfortunately for love indeed. Can't find love on the fence. You can't find love on the fence. We tried to find love on the fence. They burned it down. An alleged botched wiring job from a nearby light pole had turned the metal fence into a live electrical wire. Oh, so this was just shoddy fencery all around. This wasn't an electrical fence by nature. This was a botched wiring job. Oh, but don't worry, we need more. But don't worry. Less regulation. We need more freedom and less government intervention. That's what we need. Who needs regulations on construction? We're sure that the light poles that have live electrical wires that are touching fences in public areas, we're sure the construction companies can regulation themselves. We're sure they're never going to do any kind of shoddy. They're not going to cut any corners. No. We're sure they will. When Love touched the wire, a shock allegedly ripped through her body, launching her onto the pavement. The brutal jolt caused severe injuries to Love's head, back, and nervous systems, the court document stated. So, goat and fish. So, goat and fish. Here we are. Quotation. Defendants failed to close the courts, that is the tennis courts, failed the pickleball courts, failed to barricade or restrict access to the fence, failed to disconnect or shut off the dangerous electrical source, failed to authorize any timely repairs, failed to warn the plaintiff and other patrons of the dangers. Failures all around. Failures all around. Failures all around. The lawsuit seeks to ensure that the people and entities responsible are held accountable. Accountability? Accountability? In Fence America? Not likely. But we will have to find out. But it just shows to go you. If you're unsure about whether you should sit on that fence or not, just don't. Just don't sit on the fence. Choose goat or fish. It's safer to choose goat or fish. Do not sit on the fence. It might shock you. Don't sit on the fence. The reasons may shock you. Now that's a title. Don't sit on a fence. The reasons may shock you. I think we're going to add that. Do we have a verses for that? Do we have a verses for that? Bits. 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 Goat versus fish, goat versus fish. We know we've got it somewhere. We know we've got it somewhere. Projects. Goat versus fish, that's one versus. Stream. Where's the bits? Goat versus fish. We need Goat versus fish needs to do some serious organization of the Google Drive of Goat versus fish. Oh, my verses. There's one huge piece of news that still needs to be covered by Goat versus fish. There's huge news that needs to be covered on Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. There's one final huge news that needs to be covered on Goat versus fish. Now, you've seen Goat versus fish. You've seen Goat versus fish. You've seen Goat versus fish now cover goat news, cover fish news. You've seen Goat versus fish do all of these verses. Do all of these verses. You've seen Goat versus fish do all of these verses. But there's another kind of Goat versus fish news, isn't there? There's another kind of Goat versus fish news. And that Goat versus fish news is the news that comes from you, Goat and Fish. The news that comes from the congregation. News about the congregation of Goat versus Fish. And so we want... It might be on Goat versus Fish Thursday that we cover congressional news of Goat versus Fish. From the Goat vs. Fish Congress, you see Goat vs. Fish almost every day. Indeed you do, and Goat vs. Fish sees you. We could cover it on a Goat vs. Fish Thursday. Goat vs. Fish Thursday can be like a community day for Goat vs. Fish. But for a versus, Wow Mom had their graduation, got their degree. Lord Saturn climbed Mount Fuji. When you have great accomplishments, when you triumph in your verses, Goat vs. Fish wants to know. We want you to send your evidence to Goat vs. Fish. You can put it on the Discord of Goat vs. Fish, because we are going to have Goat vs. Fish news of another sort. So we're going to show you some verses here. We're going to show you some verses here. Let's go back. Let's go back to the Goat vs. Fish newsroom. And let's show you some pictures from Goat vs. Fish. Let's show you some pictures that Lord Saturn has said to Goat vs. Fish. First, here's a glorious view. A glorious view from the top, from the very top of Mount Fuji in Japan. As the sun sets, That's the view. That's the view. But what can you see? Oh, there's a bloop happening over there. But what can you see? What can you see from the top of Mount Fuji? You can see Goat versus Fish. You can see Goat versus Fish. You can see Goat versus Fish from atop Mount Fuji. Yes, Goat versus Fish has made it atop the mighty Fuji-sama. Yagi versus Sakana no Shiru. Wa Fuji-sama no ue ni arimasu. Lord Saturn no Yagi wa Fuji-sama o don 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 nobotteta nobottete nobottete nobottete. Yagi wa Suzusakana no T-shirts mo kiteite shiru o motte ikimashita. This is a win for Goat. This is a big win for Goat. Goat versus Fish. Higher, higher, higher than Mount Fuji. Goat versus Fish. Higher than Mount Fuji. Celebration, celebration. Genki desu yo. Genki desu yo. Genki desu yo. And here, Goat and Fish. Here, Goat and Fish is even more evidence, even more glorious evidence. The shirt of Goat versus Fish. The shirt of Goat versus Fish with Goat versus Fish emblazoned upon their chest. They climbed high, they climbed high.
So all Goat and Fish. The Goat did triumph over the Fish today. So there's Lord Saturn from top of Mount Fuji. Sun's rising over Japan right now.
What's a rising versus? Forgive Goat versus Fish.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we did it. So all Goat and Fish.
Once more.
The Goat did triumph over the Fish today. So there's Lord Saturn from top of Mount Fuji. Sun's rising over Japan right now. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 oh yeah. What a beautiful verses, what a beautiful verses. So there you have it. It wasn't much, there wasn't much to cover, there wasn't much to say other than to say glorious triumph. Glorious triumph. Glorious triumph for Lord Saturn. Celebration, Lord Saturn. Celebration, Lord Saturn. Celebration, Lord Saturn, on your glorious triumph. And out of all the news we've covered on this Newsday Tuesday of Goat vs. Fish, we think that truly is the greatest verses. The greatest verses. The greatest verses. Some news that didn't make the cut. Some news didn't make the cut this versus Goat and Fish. Some news didn't make the cut. There was a lot of news to cover. We have to do only the hard-hitting stories. There was a story, Goat and Fish. We suppose we can do just some quick news. Quick news for the news that didn't make it into the verses. Quick news for the news that didn't make it into the verses. Lightning round. Florida mom chained teen daughter to a fence for a break after losing job, cops say. Mom wanted a break and chained their kids to the fence. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't chain your kids to fences just because you want a break. Maybe don't do that. Upon arrival, officers found a 13-year-old girl chained to a fence without food or water. Don't do that. That's Goat versus Fish's take. Don't do that. Don't do that. Cruel fence. Cruel fencey behavior. Cruel fencey behavior. We have a bit of Yahoo Sports, in which Heat legend backs Bam Adebayo in Tyler hero drama, which Goat vs. Fish knows fence all about. But in case that is your verses, the fallout from Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo's shocking Las Vegas altercation continues to ripple across the NBA. What began as a leaked private message has now dragged NBA icons and legends into the conversation. The latest entrant, Tim Hardaway Sr., has made his stance unmistakably clear in his views. Hero never really embraced the Heat culture. The Heat, that's a team. Quotation. Hero was always on the fence. He was never always in with Bam. They told, speaking on the Jim Rome show, in 2026, the Jim Rome show is still a versus? That's telling me you're not a friend. That's telling me you're not all the way Heat. He's always been outside of Heat culture. Yes, the fence sitters. What culture? What do fence sitters know about culture? Not much. Not much, apparently. And fences in sports. Fences in sports. Fences in sports. The fence news continues. The fence news continues. You'll find a lot of fence news in sports. Most of the team names aren't Goat or Fish. It's very sad to Goat versus Fish. Very sad to Goat versus Fish. Very sad to Goat versus Fish. Athletics. Zach Geloff to have MRI after injuring knee during collision with left field fence. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Collision with fence. No, not a collision with the fence. Not a collision with the fence. After a 4-1 loss to the Detroit Tigers. Oh, my verses. Right knee slammed into the left field fence in foul territory when making a sliding catch. Fence doesn't condone abuse. That's nice to hear. That's nice to hear that you draw the verses somewhere. I can fix Amber Heard. That is nice to hear. Culture lives on the fence? You call this culture? Ah! Look at their faces. Look at their faces. Look at them! So there you have it. There's our news of Goat versus Fish. This has been the news of Goat versus Fish. And now here we are with the chat of Goat versus Fish with the congregation. This has been your Tues versus Morning Motivation Tuesday Newsday. We are now open. We are now open to your commentations. We always have been, but we're open to your commentations. And we also will look at this bloop. We're going to look at this bloop and we're going to see Rent Stallion. Rent Stallion is winning the bloop with 5,000. Now 6,000 points. It seems that no one's going to catch Rent Stallion, so that's a versus for GOAT. That's a versus for GOAT. Rent Stallion, Rent Stallion, GOAT. Rent Stallion, Fish. We were about to call you GOAT, but now we're thinking maybe that you were Fish. Now we're thinking that maybe, because we think of a wrench and we think it's like hard, like the horn of a goat. Rent Stallion, GOAT. The real news that matters. It's the only thing that matters in the universe. Everything else is just absurd and meaningless. But not GOAT versus Fish. But also GOAT versus Fish. We have 10 bits for Fish. We have 2 subscriptions for GOAT, 2 subscriptions for GOAT. That's a versus for GOAT. The bloop was a versus for GOAT. The bloop was a versus for GOAT. We have 1 subscription for Fish and 1 subscription for GOAT, so that's an even versus. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 GOAT and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Fish. That's a versus for GOAT. That's 3 verses for GOAT, 1 versus for Fish. And it's split verses. 2 verses for Fish. 2 verses for Fish, because 10 bits for Fish and not even 10 bits for GOAT. So this is the current verses. We got 10 bits from I Can Fix Amber Heard an hour ago. We have Derelict Ticka with GOAT. Subscription. Celebration. We have Moby Was Taken. With 60 months of GOAT versus Fish. This has been GOAT versus Fish News. Appreciation. So GOAT and Fish, thank you for watching GOAT vs. Fish. Thank you for support of GOAT vs. Fish. Tomorrow's morning motivational will be a musication motivational. We're going to do a mini motivational, and then we're just going to play the guitar with GOAT vs. Fish and have a nice, enjoyable verses. Appreciation, appreciation, appreciation. Appreciation. GOAT vs. Fish. Let's refer to our patrons. Generous donors at patreon.com/GoatVsFish. Our humble congregation: Ben Birdperson, The Quaxinator, Jimmy Wrench, Mama Joe Vramajo, Standard Average. Wow, that image in the background of GOAT vs. Fish is doing something fancy, all right. The fence is going on back there. The fence is going on. Oh, because... why the fence would it... There's like a bonus... Secondary. GOAT versus Fish. It's all verses. It's all verses. Generous donors at patreon.com/GOAT vs. Fish. Ben Birdperson, The Quaxinator, Jimmy Wrench, Mama Joe Vramajo, Standard Average, Tuggerugger, Hogrim, Eldergrown, Uber Kitten, Pedistador, Eventually Gold, Prism Bloom, Psychic Buckeye 12, Drew, and Hi-Fi Protege. The Elite Humble Congregation, Karmic, Prue Lawrence, Lord Saturn, Atro, Sourdough, Watts 9807, That One Bulk Guy, Napoleon Doom, and the Unification Congregation, I Can Fix Amber Heard, and Lysergic Fish. Appreciation, appreciation, appreciation from GOAT vs. Fish. If you are enjoying verses like these, GOAT vs. Fish implores you, please. Maybe your Derelict Ticka, maybe your Moby Was Taken, and you've been subscribed for 60 months to GOAT vs. Fish. Double your verses, double your support for GOAT vs. Fish. Your dollar goes twice as far when you become a Patreon patron of GOAT vs. Fish. You can go up to 20 versus American dollars to be a member of the Unification Congregation. And as a matter of GOAT vs. Fish, you can give as much to GOAT vs. Fish as you wish on a monthly basis. Yes, we have not had a new patron since Lysergic Fish. No, we have not had a new patron since Hi-Fi Protege for a long verses. We would appreciate your support of GOAT vs. Fish. We have been investing so much in GOAT vs. Fish. New gear for GOAT vs. Fish. New decorations for GOAT vs. Fish. New cameras for GOAT vs. Fish. We really are investing in GOAT vs. Fish because GOAT vs. Fish believes in GOAT vs. Fish. We hope you believe in GOAT vs. Fish as much as GOAT vs. Fish believes in you. Zeta Physician says, show us your eyes. There you have it. Zeta Physician, are you goat or are you fish? So consider joining the Patreon of Goat vs. Fish. It would be a very, very beautiful versus if you did. So that's Goat vs. Fish. We hope you enjoyed the verses. This has been the news of Goat vs. Fish. Some might even call it a critical versus. Some might even call it a critical versus. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish news. It's the news of Goat versus Fish. Cue the news outro music. Oh, my versus news outro music. News music. DMCA free. This has been Goat vs. Fish News on Morning Motivational number 110. Goat vs. Fish News is brought to you by the Church of Goat vs. Fish, a completely biased and simultaneously unbiased source of information pertaining to goat and to fish. We'll see you on the next Tuesday Newsday of Goat vs. Fish. Stay informed, stay goat, stay fish. And it was written, and it was written.